We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
In Italy, Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said that Rome was allocating 25 billion euros to fight the novel coronavirus outbreak that has killed 631 people in Italy.
New York is deploying National Guard troops for the first time in the coronavirus crisis to help contain the spread of the disease from an infection-hit suburb of New York City.
The number of novel coronavirus cases globally stood at 118,554, with 4,281 deaths across 110 countries and territories.
Iglesia Ni Cristo launches aid to humanity for OFWs in Nagoya, Japan.
I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. Italians braced for a second day of national lockdown Wednesday after a sharp spike in coronavirus-related deaths. Europe's hardest-hit country said the death toll from the COVID-19 virus had risen Tuesday by a third to 631, with the surging epidemic playing havoc with global sporting, cultural, and political events. Take a look.
Speriamo di farcela, perché da circa 140 persone al giorno, a mezzogiorno ne facciamo sì e no 20-25 persone.
We arrived yesterday, and yes, we heard about in the news, so actually wanted to stay in Italy and going to Rome and Napoli, and now we're going back to Germany probably, because everything is closed, so.
No,
we're not.
No, we're not.
We're still fairly young and healthy, and like it didn't stop us from coming to see Rome.
Right.
It was going to take a lot more than the coronavirus to stop us from coming.
Exactly. So, no, not afraid at all, really.
My dream is to meet the Coliseo and Vatican, but it's not possible today. But another day in the future, I will return to Rome.
In an unprecedented move, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has told the 60 million residents of his country they should travel only for the most urgent work on health reasons. And while squares in Milan and Rome were emptied of their usual bustle and traffic, some residents appeared uncertain if they could leave their homes for everyday tasks like shopping. Now, Catholic Pope Francis also seemed to muddy the waters, holding a mass in which he urged priests to go out and visit the sick, something the Prime Minister has specifically discouraged. Sporting events continue to fall victim to the virus as authorities urge people to avoid large gatherings.
Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said Wednesday that Rome was allocating 25 billion euros to fight the novel coronavirus outbreak that has killed 631 people in Italy. The entire sum will not all be used immediately, Conte added. Economy Minister Roberto Gualtieri said Italy will immediately use half of these resources and keep the other half in reserve. Italy unveiled a 7.5 billion euro emergency response package last Thursday that officials later said would likely have to be increased to match the rapid rise in new infections and deaths. A top economy minister had said on Tuesday that the package could reach 10 billion euros. Italy, whose faltering economy is the third largest in the Eurozone, needs special EU permission to spend more than allowed under the bloc's strict budget rules for its 27 member states. EU leaders had said they would accept Italy's request when it still stood at 7.5 billion euros.
Meanwhile, Iran on Wednesday reported 63 new deaths from the novel coronavirus in the past 24 hours, the highest single-day toll since it announced the first deaths from the outbreak. The outbreak of the coronavirus in Iran is one of the deadliest outside China, where the disease originated. The capital, Tehran, and the most new infections with 256 cases. Iran is yet to officially impose quarantines, but authorities have repeatedly called on people to refrain from traveling. They've closed schools and universities and resorted to shutting hotels and other tourist accommodation to discourage travel. And New York is deploying National Guard troops for the first time in the coronavirus crisis to help contain the spread of the disease from an infection-hit suburb of New York City, and that is according to the state's governor on Tuesday. Inhabitants of the city of New Rochelle, the epicenter of a coronavirus outbreak in the state of New York, reacted to this announcement of a containment area or containment zone starting Thursday. The area is centered on Young Israel Synagogue in New Rochelle, just north of New York City, which was attended by the state's first case, a lawyer working in Manhattan.
We want to keep it where it doesn't spread, but we also don't want to be isolated either. And I think that the important thing is that we tell parents, teachers, and kids to stay clean. You know, wash your hands.
You know, people are scared. It's an unusual situation to be in, especially being named the epicenter of a national epidemic. It's called. It's unnerving, and it makes people very nervous. It makes people nervous to be around others. It makes people nervous to go into businesses.
Governor Andrew Cuomo said authorities would set up a 1-mile radius containment zone around the epicenter of an outbreak in New Rochelle in this suburban Westchester County. Cuomo explained that all facilities in the zone that hold large gatherings, such as schools and temples, would be closed for 2 weeks beginning Thursday. There have been 173 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in New York State, including 108 in Westchester County, home to New Rochelle, where the majority of infections have been detected. Cuomo told reporters that businesses in the containment zone will remain open and that people will be free to come and go as they wish, insisting there is no quarantine. The whole of the United States has more than 950 confirmed cases of the deadly virus, according to a running tally by Johns Hopkins University. 28 people have died, 23 of those in Washington State and the other U.S. virus epicenter.
President Trump is urging Americans to remain calm in the face of fear about the spread of coronavirus in the United States. Watch this.
Well, I don't think it's a big deal. I would do it. I don't feel that any reason. I feel extremely good. I feel very good. But I guess it's not a big deal to get tested, and it's something I would do. But again, spoke to the White House doctor, terrific guy, talented guy. He said he sees no reason to do it. There's no symptoms, no anything. And you know what? If there were, you people would be the first to know it. You would maybe even tell me about it. Yes, it's fault. Perhaps they wanted to do something a different way, but it was a much slower process from a previous administration. And we did change them. We made the changes. But the testing has gone very well. And when people need a test, they can get a test. When the professionals need a test, when they need tests for people, they can get the test. It's gone really well. Well, this was unexpected. This was something that came out of China, and it hit us and many other countries. You look at the numbers. I see the numbers with just by watching you folks. I see it. It's over 100 different countries, and it hit the world. And we're prepared, and we're doing a great job with it. And it will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away. We want to protect our shipping.
Now, as he said earlier, U.S. President Donald Trump said he would be happy to get a coronavirus test, but that he has been told there is no need, despite having had contact with several lawmakers who chose to self-quarantine. Take a look.
Why not get tested yourself and you interact with Matt Gates and Doug Collins last month?
Well, I don't think it's a big deal. I would do it. I don't feel that any reason. I feel extremely good. I feel very good. But I guess it's not a big deal to get tested, and something I would do. But again, spoke to the White House doctor, terrific guy, talented guy. He said he sees no reason to do it. There's no symptoms, no anything. You know what? If there were, you people would be the first to know it. You would maybe even tell me about it. Yes, please.
President Trump's health has come under the spotlight as the coronavirus spreads in the U.S., with 3 Republican lawmakers shown here who met with the president, having been exposed recently to someone who had tested positive. One of those deciding to go into self-imposed quarantine was Trump's pick for White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, although his test result was negative. Another, Matt Gaetz, who traveled with Trump on Air Force One on Monday, said that he had also tested negative.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, warned that people's lives are going to have to change as the nation deals with the coronavirus. He said that COVID-19 cases are, quote, going to be up. Watch this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Just to give you a very brief sketch of what we do every day, the cases continue to increase globally. We're paying particular attention to the cases in Europe, in Italy, and France, in which we're starting to see that up at the same time as the relative number of new cases come down from China. What we're seeing in Europe is that Europe is in that upslope. So that's something that is expected. That's the way these kinds of outbreaks go. This is not a surprise to anybody if you look at the history of infectious diseases outbreaks. In the United States, we continue to have new cases. As of this morning, there were 712, I believe, with 27 deaths. Guaranteed by the time of this evening, that's going to be up, and there'll be several more. And tomorrow, there'll be several more. So we realize that this is something, obviously, that we've been saying all along, that we're taking very seriously. Now, the question is, what are we going to do about that? And there are a number of things that one can do in order to blunt it. If you look at the curves of outbreaks, you know, they go big peaks and they come down. What we need to do is flatten that down. That would have less people infected. That would ultimately have less deaths. You do that by trying to interfere with the natural flow of the outbreak. So what we're saying today is that although we keep coming in and saying appropriately that as a nation, the risk is relatively low. There are parts of the country right now that are having community spread in which the risk there is clearly a bit more than that. And you know the places, you know, Washington State, California, New York, and Florida. But what I want to talk to you about today, just for a moment or two, is that we would like the country to realize that as a nation, we can't be doing the kinds of things we were doing a few months ago. That it doesn't matter if you're in a state that has no cases or one case. You have to start taking seriously what you can do now, that if and when the infections will come, and they will come, sorry to say, sad to say, they will. But when you're dealing with an infectious disease, you know, we always have that metaphor that people talk about, that Wayne Gretzky, you know, he doesn't go where the puck is, he's going where the puck is going to be. Well, we want to be where the infection is going to be, as well as where it is. So what we have here, if you could see that here, what it's here is that if you go to coronavirus.gov, remember when Dr. Birx yesterday mentioned some of the things that we put together. These are really simple. Keeping the workplace safe, keeping the home safe, keeping the schools safe, and keeping commercial establishments safe. This should be universal for the country. Everyone should be doing that, whether you live in a zone that has community spread or not. When you have community spread, you're obviously going to ratchet up the kinds of mitigations that you have. But at a minimum, this is the minimum that we should be doing. So everybody should say, all hands on deck, this is what we need to do. So I'll stop there, and later I'll be happy to answer questions.
To the United Kingdom now, British MP Nadine Dorries, a minister in the Health Department, has tested positive for coronavirus. She said in a statement on Tuesday, raising concerns about whether senior government figures have been infected. The Tory minister says she's self-isolating at home after testing positive for coronavirus. Health officials are now trying to trace where she contracted the virus and who she has been in contact with, she added. Dorries, who helped craft the legislation to fight the bug, is the first British politician to be diagnosed with COVID-19. The Times also reported that she had been in touch with hundreds of people, including Prime Minister Boris Johnson. She fell unwell on Friday while signing the document that declared coronavirus a notifiable disease, meaning companies could obtain insurance cover. According to the paper, adding she was now believed to be on the road to recovery. The shock news is likely to increase calls to suspend Parliament despite the government's reluctance to do so in the middle of a health crisis.
Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, announced Wednesday it was closing schools and universities to prevent the spread of the novel coronavirus. Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said in a statement, I quote, "We are introducing preventive measures in Kyiv. As of March 12, classes would be suspended in schools and universities until the end of March." Ukraine has so far reported one coronavirus case. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has released its latest update, reporting 242 new coronavirus cases. The total number of cases in the country now stands at 7,755. Our EBC correspondent in South Korea, Hanani Sabado, reports from Seoul.
South Korea has currently reported 7,755 cases of coronavirus infections, with a total of 60 deaths, putting the nation in the fourth spot in the countries most affected by the pandemic. 114 countries and territories were imposing entry restriction as well as tougher quarantine procedures for travelers from South Korea. 3 Caribbean nations have joined the list imposing entry restriction. Haiti barring its door at the moment from at least 6 virus-infected nations, including South Korea, with a record of visits in the past 2 weeks. The Bahamas implemented an entry ban from travelers that have visited Korea in the past 20 days. As Thailand reinforces its quarantine procedure for all passengers from South Korea, the nation requires passengers to submit a health certificate proving they have tested negative for the virus and written proof of insurance policy that covers over $100,000. They said the measure will take effect until the 9th of June. This is Hanani Sabado, EBC correspondent from South Korea, and I am one with 25.
Staying in South Korea, medical workers are testing employees outside the Korea building in Seoul, where a call center on the 11th floor has seen dozens of positive cases of the coronavirus so far. People working on other floors of the building are also being tested. The building has now become the biggest cluster of infections in the South Korean capital. Take a look.
주거용 공간이 나눠져 있습니다. 1층부터
가족을 포함해 최소 35명이 확진 판정을 받았고 아직 검사를 받지 않은 밀접 접촉자들도 많아 확진자는 더 늘어날 전망입니다.
다른 지역이나 대구 경북 쪽에서 이제 확진자가 많이 나오다가 제가 실제로 근무하던 환경에서 이제 나오게 되다 보니까 되게 당황스럽기도 하고 실제로 겁도 많이 나고 이제 다른 층에서 근무하시는 분들이지만 이제 또 걱정도 많이 되고 있어요. 엘리베이터가 총 2개가 있는데 짝수 홀수로 나눠서 이제 운영이 되고 있습니다. 저는 이제 같은 홀수층을 이제 사용하던 7층에 근무자고요. 지난 한 달간 엘리베이터에 손소독제가 비치되어 있던 적이 없고 무엇보다도 콜센터에서 근무하는 인원들이 출근 시간과 퇴근 시간이 모두 같다는 점에서 이제 다른 층에서 근무하는 분들도 이제 많이 우려를 하고 있습니다.
지금 같은 건물에서 일하고 그 층수는 다르더라도 뭔가 이제 걱정돼서 일단 오긴 했는데 일단 검사도 좀 너무 줄도 길고요. 그래서 좀 조심 좀 해야 될 것 같아요. 네.
The number of novel coronavirus cases globally stood at 118,554, with 4,281 deaths across 110 countries and territories by 0900 GMT Wednesday, according to a tally compiled by AFP from official sources. Since 1700 GMT on Tuesday, 1,214 new cases and 13 new deaths have been reported. China, excluding the territories of Hong Kong and Macau, where the epidemic emerged at the end of December, had 80,778 cases, of which 3,158 were fatal. There have been 24 new infections and 22 deaths since 1700 GMT Tuesday, while 61,475 people have recovered from the virus. Outside China, a total of 37,776 cases have been recorded around the world since the epidemic began, including 1,123 deaths. Some 1,190 cases are new, with 8 new deaths. The most affected countries after China are Italy, with 10,149 cases, 631 deaths. Iran with 8,042 cases, 291 deaths. South Korea with 7,755 cases, 54 deaths. And France with 1,784 cases, 33 deaths. Since 1700 GMT on Tuesday, China, Spain, France, and the United States have recorded new deaths. Brunei and Turkey confirmed the first coronavirus cases on their territory. Asia recorded a total at 0900 GMT Wednesday of 90,511 cases, 3,230 deaths. Europe, 18,110 cases with 716 deaths. The Middle East, 8,566 cases and 299 deaths. U.S. and Canada, 989 cases and 29 deaths. Latin America and the Caribbean, 138 cases with 2 deaths. Oceania, 129 cases with 3 deaths. Africa with 111 cases and 2 deaths.
Meanwhile, Panama's health minister confirmed 8 cases of the new coronavirus in the country, including 1 death, the first virus-linked death in Central America. Minister Rosario Turner said during a press conference in Panama City that a 64-year-old man who was already suffering from diabetes complications associated with bacterial pneumonia died of the COVID-19 virus on Sunday. Turner also said that the deceased man was the director of a school and that 2 of the other cases were affiliated with the same establishment. The other 7 people who tested positive ranged in age from 29 to 59, and all but 1 had recently traveled abroad. Panama is the second Central American country to record cases of the COVID-19 virus, following Costa Rica, where 13 people tested positive, including 3 Americans. The Panamanian government ordered public and private schools closed until April 7 in the potentially affected regions.
The Department of Health on Wednesday confirmed 16 additional novel coronavirus cases in the country. This brings the national total to 49. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said that there is a possibility of community transmission of COVID-19. Here's more.
Can you say po ba, Mr. Secretary, na meron na tayong COVID outbreak sa Pilipinas?
The definition, basta bago itong virus na ito, kahit na isa is already considered an outbreak.
And is it possible na tumaas pa po? Kasi sa ngayon, ang sabi nyo, 33 na yung positive sa COVID-19. Since na-trace na po yung mga nakasalamuhan mga pasyente, is that a possibility?
Oh, it
na
is a
tumaas
very
pa po ang
huge possibility,
bilang?
Your Honor. Yes, yes. Talagang tataas pa ho ang bilang niyan. At 100 at 4 na bansa sa buong mundo ay meron na nito at 40 to 50 na po ang may local transmission.
Meanwhile, a British woman has died in Bali from coronavirus, according to authorities on Wednesday, marking Indonesia's first confirmed death from the rapidly spreading illness. The 53-year-old died early Wednesday in a hospital on the Indonesian holiday island, but it was unclear if she contracted the virus before or after arriving in Bali late last month, according to local officials. Indonesian health authorities said Wednesday the woman had serious health problems, including diabetes, hypertension, hyperthyroid, and lung disease. Also on Wednesday, Indonesia said its number of confirmed virus cases had reached 34.
School closures in 15 countries linked to the COVID-19 virus has disrupted the education of more than 360 million students, an unprecedented number according to UNESCO. Disadvantaged children are the worst hit by the emergency measures, according to UN Agency Director General Audrey Azoulay. Ms. Azoulay said that her organization is working with countries to ensure continuity of learning for all.
The latest figures that we have as of this morning is that schools and universities are closed in 15 countries worldwide, affecting some 363 million learners. Another 14 countries have implemented partial school closures, and should their closures be expanded countrywide, an additional 540 million learners would be affected. I think it's the first time that we have a global virtual meeting of ministers for education. We have with us today 72 countries, including around 40 ministers for education and high-level representatives of their ministries.
The spread of COVID-19 worldwide is leading to panic buying, with store shelves being stripped bare, with some countries having to start rationing items. Here's our EBC Hawaii Bureau correspondent Alfred Asenas on how to overcome shortages of basic household items during these times of fears. Alfred?
Toilet paper, face mask, hand sanitizers, bottled water, disinfecting wipes, even canned luncheon meat. These are just some of the items that our crew here in Hawaii have seen fly off the shelves in the last several weeks. It's as if the residents here are stocking up in anticipation of an impending hurricane, when in fact, what they're anticipating is something more deadly and more unpredictable and causes more fear, especially now that there are at least 2 confirmed cases of the COVID-19 in Hawaii. From small convenience stores like where I'm standing, to supermarkets, to hardware stores, and especially these big box wholesale stores, residents all over the Aloha State and beyond have been frantic in buying certain household items to prevent themselves and their families from contamination. So we at Eagle News try to figure out for ourselves, while doing a little shopping of course, how worried are these people in Hawaii? And more importantly, how are they coping with this huge global issue? Here's what we found so far.
How are you avoiding panic buying? A lot of people are spending money on water and toilet paper right now. What are you doing about that?
What I'm doing is I just stay calm because
you're going to buy like a toilet tissue or paper towel that you're going to use at home. There's water at home, and I think water is safer.
What did we talk about the instead of handshaking? Can you show how
Oh, you do that one. No hugging.
Then hugging or like shaking, or you come.
or how about oh, there you go. Okay. All right. If there's any kind of advice you'd like to tell your friends out there, what would you like to tell them about the sickness?
Stay away from the crowd and don't shake hands too much. Just wave and don't talk too so close to everybody.
Meanwhile, government organizations at various levels continue to emphasize cleanliness, hygiene, and even safety, while applying a little common sense to avoid the spread of germs. Some of the other suggestions and comments from those that declined our interview emphasized these neighborhood watches, these neighborhood boards in which they're originally designed to look out for each other to prevent crime, when they, in fact, some of them have started looking into those options to be able to depend on each other for certain commodities. It's as if they go back to the basics of just being a good next-door neighbor, a good Samaritan, and just helping each other out in their time of need. Reporting from Hawaii, this is Alfred Asenas, Eagle News, always one with 25.
Thank you, Alfred. Eagle News will be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings,
at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net 25.
Joe Biden moved a giant step closer to a November showdown with Donald Trump after notching up big primary wins Tuesday over Bernie Sanders, his sole remaining challenger for the Democratic presidential nomination. Biden, 77, the centrist former vice president, scored a resounding win in Michigan, where Sanders, 78, the leftist senator from Vermont, had hoped to make a stand. He also cruised to victory in Missouri, Idaho, and Mississippi, 3 of the other 5 states to vote on Tuesday.
We were planning a big rally in Cleveland tonight, but the governor of Ohio asked the presidential campaigns to cancel their indoor public events in Cleveland with large crowds of people. And that's what we did due to the coronavirus. This is a matter, this whole coronavirus issue is a matter of presidential leadership. Just over a week ago, many of the pundits declared that this candidacy was dead. Now we're very much alive. And although there's a way to go, it looks like we're going to have another good night. And I want to thank Bernie Sanders and his supporters for their tireless energy and their passion. We share a common goal, and together we'll defeat Donald Trump. We'll defeat him together. We're going to bring this nation together.
Our next story will show us how one church, the Iglesia de Cristo Church of Christ, through its aid to humanity, continued to extend its help to our overseas Filipino workers in Japan. Our EBC correspondent in Japan, Lou Stefan Omelda, reports from Nagoya.
The increasing number of contagious diseases and calamities happening in Japan and around the world did not stop the members of Iglesia ni Cristo in extending help and providing support through a humanitarian event organized for overseas Filipino workers in Japan. More than 1,000 OFWs and Japanese nationals in the southwestern regions of Japan, namely Chubu, Kansai, Chugoku, Shikoku, and Kyushu regions, were in attendance for the socio-civic activity dubbed as Kabayan Ko Kapatid Ko, or My Countrymen, My Brethren, that officially kicked off the year 2020 for Iglesia ni Cristo members. Friends and co-workers who traveled long distance did not only receive material help, but also a spiritual one. The program began with a preaching led by a minister in the church, followed by performances from artists who flew all the way from the Philippines. The Filipino singer Marcelito Pomoy, who recently became viral and even more famous because of his participation in a well-known American talent competition, was one of the many artists who performed for the attendees in the said event. This activity is one of the philanthropic works of the said organization that was relaunched at the beginning of this year. In the past, this activity was solely intended to help the underprivileged sector of the society, providing material help and medical assistance in the Philippines. However, later last year, they started to extend and widen the scope of the activity by reaching out to our fellow men abroad.
Sobrang saya ko kasi parang alam mo yung tapos sa puso yung ano yung nasabi nila. Although sa akong sarili yung nakita ko na nag-realize ko kung ano yung pagkakaiba ng Bible sa kung sa ibang sinasamba. Sobrang na-entertain ako na at alam mo yun na wala sa puso.
As of 2017, more than 200,000 Filipinos have been working in Japan, according to the Japanese Justice Ministry. And less than 1,000 Filipino students started studying in Japan either as an exchange student, a graduate student, or a Japanese language student. A student shared his thoughts on studying in Japan and how such event makes an impact to them as well.
So yung mga ganitong aktibidad po maganda dahil una nakakakita-kita yung mga Pilipino na nakatira dito sa Japan. So syempre yung feeling na homesick ka nung mismo yung mga kababayan mo naiibsan. Tapos yung ganitong aktibidad na mabibigyan din sila ng tulong. Alam naman kasi natin kahit na nandito tayo sa Japan, hindi pa rin ganoon kadali ang buhay. Kaya yung mga ganitong tulong malaki rin ang nagagawa para ma-boost yung pamumuhay ng mga Pilipino na nakatira dito sa Japan.
Despite the decreasing number of religious organizations today, Iglesia ni Cristo holds on quite strongly and is continuously growing and getting more and more influential.
Yung mga aktibidad na isinasagawa sa loob ng Iglesia ni Cristo, lalo na po ngayon, ang kabayan ko, kapatid ko na dito isinagawa sa Nagoya, Japan, ay napakahalaga sapagkat malaking naitutulong po sa mga kababayan po nating Pilipino, gayon din po yung mga Hapon na kasama po natin ngayon. Na lalo po sa panahon po ngayon, marami po nagaganap ng mga kaguluhan, mga sakit, yung iba ay biktima ng mga kalamidad, yung mga naitutulong po natin ay malaking bagay para sa kanila. At higit sa lahat, yung salita ng Diyos, na doon po na ipaparating sa kanila yung katotohanan, yung salita ng Diyos na dapat maunawaan at masampalatayanan ng bawat isa sa atin para sa ating kaligtasan.
Reporting from Nagoya, Japan, I am Lou Omelda for Eagle News International, and I am 1 with 25.
Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Cathay Pacific on Wednesday said profits plunged in 2019 as it reeled from political unrest in Hong Kong, while it warned financial losses lay ahead owing to the spread of the new coronavirus. The flagship carrier was battered throughout the second half of last year as violent pro-democracy protests raged for months in Hong Kong, sparked by widespread public anger at Beijing's rule. The demonstrations, which saw battles between police and protesters, raged for 7 straight months, hammered tourist arrivals into the city, traditionally one of the world's busiest transport hubs. On Wednesday, the flagship carrier reported an attributable profit of 1.7 billion Hong Kong dollars for 2019, a significant drop from the 2.3 billion Hong Kong dollars it made in 2018. And it warned of slipping into the red as airlines around the world suffer the huge travel disruptions caused by the rapid global spread of the deadly coronavirus. Dozens of passenger jets are now parked at the tarmac at Hong Kong's airport, Cathay's transportation headquarters. Hong Kong's economy is currently in recession, battered by the China-US trade war, the protests, and now the coronavirus. The city has 120 confirmed cases of the COVID-19 disease, with 3 deaths.
Back to the UK, the Bank of England will take all necessary further steps to support the UK economy from the coronavirus fallout. That is according to Governor Mark Carney on Wednesday after the BOE slashed its key interest rate. Carney's pledge followed the BOE's emergency rate cut to a joint UK record low of 0.25% from 0.75%. It also comes ahead of Britain's annual budget statement later Wednesday, said to be dominated by government efforts to help virus-hit businesses. Take a look.
The bank is coordinating its actions with those that the Chancellor will announce later today in the budget in order to ensure that our initiatives are complementary and that they will collectively have maximum impact consistent with our independent responsibilities. The bank will also continue to coordinate closely with our international counterparts. The bank will take all necessary further steps to support the UK economy and financial system consistent with its statutory responsibilities.
EU leaders saw Tuesday to reassure business and markets they will do what it takes to protect the bloc's economy from the effects of the deadly coronavirus epidemic. Here's more.
Thank you very much, Charles. The crisis we face because of coronavirus has both a very significant human dimension and a potentially major economic impact. And it is therefore essential that we act very decisively and collectively, first of all, to contain the spread of the virus and help patients, and to counter the economic fallout. And to let me be very clear, the Commission is working flat out on both fronts. The Commission has been entrusted to, first of all, coordinate the necessary measures in a daily phone conference with the health ministers and/or the ministers of internal affairs. Secondly, The Commission will assemble a team of epidemiologists and virologists from different member states to give us guidelines on the European level on a regular basis. Third point, the Commission is now taking stock of all the available protective equipment and the respiratory devices, as well as their production and their distribution capacity, so that we have a European overview about that. These are crucial for the entire health sector in Europe. On research and development, it has already been said that we will reinforce the European initiative to fund targeted research on corona. We have mobilized 140 million euros of public and private funding for promising research on vaccines, on treatment, and on diagnosis. And last sector, on the economic front. First and foremost, we must act at the macroeconomic level. And to be very clear from my part too, we will use all the tools at our disposal to make sure that the European economy weathers this storm. And because it's so important for this message, in Germany too, wir werden alle uns zur Verfügung stehenden Mittel.
We will use all funds at our disposal so that the economy in the EU resists and is resilient. We will be using all of our means so that our economy can weather the storm.
To realize this, I will propose to Council and Parliament this week to release 7.5 billion euros of investment liquidity. I will set up a task force to work with the member states to ensure that the money starts flowing in the coming weeks. Indeed, today marks an important step in a coordinated response that the 27 heads of state and government, the President of the European Council, and the Commission have been calling for. Now it's time for action.
In other business news, Shanghai Disney Resort reopens more than a month after shutting down due to the coronavirus outbreak in late January. Take a look.
Guests and cast members. All guests are required to follow cast directions for body temperature check on entry to the resort.
Climate change is having a major effect on all aspects of the environment, as well as on the health and well-being of the global population. That's the conclusion of a UN report led by the World Meteorological Organization. It documents accelerating signs of climate change, such as increasing land and ocean heat, accelerating sea level rise and melting ice, and the knock-on effects on human health, migration and displacement, food security, as well as land and marine ecosystems. Writing in the report, UN Chief Antonio Guterres warned that the world is currently way off track, meeting commitments made by the international community in 2015 to keep global average temperatures well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The report confirms that 2019 was the second warmest year on record, and 2010 to 2019 was the warmest decade on record.
We need all countries to demonstrate that we can achieve emissions reductions of 45% from 2010 levels this decade, and that we will reach net zero emissions by mid-century. And we know this is the only way to limit global heating to 1.5 degrees Celsius. National climate plans the national determined contributions, as they are called, must show more ambition. Even if countries fully implement their existing plans under the Paris Agreement, and many are not doing so, we would still be on course to reach 3 degrees of heating this century. Revised NDCs, national determined contributions, must set clear targets for 2025 and 2030 that will help us stick to the 1.5 degree limit. By COP26, developed countries must deliver on their commitment to mobilize $100 billion a year by 2020. Investments in renewables and green technologies must increase. We need to end the vast and wasteful subsidies for fossil fuels, which actually increased last year. And we need to put a price on carbon and see a commitment to end the construction of new coal power plants. It's time to end our addiction to coal.
Tokyo 2020 President Yoshiro Mori gives his comments after a member of the organizer's executive board sounded the alarm on the virus outbreak, warning that postponing the games for 2 years might be the best option under the circumstances. Take a look.
とんでもないことをおっしゃったなというのは正直な、感想ですね、その時は。近々基本的な考え方も示されるようですし、もちろん政府もそういう考え方を言いますから、私どもはそうしたあれはない限りですね、組織委員会としてはやっぱり当初予定通りこれ進ませていくというのは当然じゃないですか。そういうことは当然心配は心配です。高橋さんがおっしゃるように1年や2年延ばしましょうと言ってそこの場所をまたみんな使えるようになるのかどうかっていうのはそんな保証はないですよ。そんな保証を高橋さんが作ってくれるならいいけどね、そんなことは考えられないことですよ。みんなが神経を尖らして、より、安全に前に進むようにということをやってる矢先ですから、それぞれ、関係のある人はいろんな、考えは持っておられるんだろうけども、今私どもは組織委員会しっかりしていくそういう時期だというふうに思ってますね。まずかったね、ごめんなさいと言っておられましたから。
Going now to the National Lacrosse League action, coming off from a defeat at the hands of the Calgary Roughnecks, the Georgia Swarm went into the Rogers Arena to face a challenge of the Vancouver Warriors in a game that seemed to be over after only 6 minutes. Zolti Horvat reports.
The Georgia Swarm rolled into Rogers Arena and defeated the Vancouver Warriors 14-7. Warriors' Jordan McBride scored 4 goals with Riley Lowen adding a hat trick, but that was all Vancouver could muster as they fell to 4-8 on the season. With over 8,000 fans in attendance in Vancouver, the Swarm shut down any chance of victory by the Warriors before the second quarter was over. The Swarm scored 6 goals in the first quarter and 3 more in the second to take a 9-3 lead into halftime. Warriors forward Jordan McBride scored his 18th to 21st goals of the season with his 4-goal game. Forward Riley Lowen scored his 13th to 15th goals of the season with his hat trick. The second half surge by the Warriors was to no avail as the Swarm held on to double the Warriors' goals 14-7. Warriors head coach Chris Gill mentioned postgame that the biggest issue was the Swarm's power play that went 6 for 7 on the night. He stated the game would have been much closer if it wasn't for the special teams. The Georgia Swarm are sitting second place in the East Division behind New England with 8 games remaining. And although the Warriors sit on the bottom of the West Division, they are only 3.5 games back of the lead. With 6 games remaining, there's still time for Vancouver to work their way up the standings and show that they are worthy of a playoff spot. Zolti Horvath, Eagle News, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Zolti.
Thank you, Zolti. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards on Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's the news for tonight. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Eagle News, I'm Alma Angeles, and we're one with 25.